we'd been on tour for a year. I mean, I had no conception of there being a life after. I think I was probably thought I was just going to go, I don't know, drink myself to death in a bar. I mean, I really couldn't see anything beyond this. And he said, "How do you fancy coming to play on Madonna records?" Like, what? I'm on about 4 or 5 songs on the album. Um, and it was the first, that was the first time I'd done a proper Premier League LA session,
Yes.
literally flown out to LA, all the boys, like I said, proper grown-ups, people who playing on Steely Dan records, could run with scissors. It was, I felt a bit of a, I mean, it was funny because I was coming off the back of that massive Pink Floyd tour. And so I kind of had had kudos around me, but I did not feel like one of those guys at all. That was never my, that was never my thing. I never wanted to be one of those to, I mean, but I was very happy to have it.
Mm.
Yeah, and it was an amazing experience. And of course, I ended up being on, that song, which is an absolute career defining thing for me.
You've mentioned you've come off the back of the whole Pink Floyd tour. So how did someone get in touch with you? Was it one of Madonna's people? Was it someone from the studio? I mean, how did you get involved in this record?
It was Pat Leonard, her writer producer, who I knew because I'd been working with him on Bryan Ferry's record, Bête Noire. That's one which I actually really, which actually, we're not talking about favorite album, because was actually with the most important album in my life, because actually everything comes from that album. If I think about it, I got nicked from Icehouse to play for Bryan Ferry by Rhett Davis, the producer. So Rhett is a massively important person. Once I'm there playing for, and Brian, I'd played for Robert Palmer before, but playing for Bryan Ferry, that was crossing the Rubicon. That was like, oh my God, this is Bryan Ferry. This is like Bowie level
Yeah.
for me, for childhood hero kind of thing. And yeah, on that album, I met all the people who had shaped my life. Chester Kamen, the guitarist, Johnny Marr, David Gilmour, and Pat Leonard. Literally everything comes. So in terms of so actually the most important album ever for me was Bête Noire by Bryan Ferry. And but it was through that I met Pat Leonard. I went out to LA and played on some stuff on the album, and then spent a lot of time in London. And Pat and I really hit it off. And he came to see a Pink Floyd show towards the end of the tour and just said, "Hey, Guy, what are you doing at the end of this?" And I could, we'd been on tour for a year. I mean, I had no conception of there being a life after. I think I was probably thought I was just going to go, I don't know, drink myself to death in a bar. I mean, I really couldn't see anything beyond this. And he said, "How do you fancy coming to play on Madonna records?" Like, what? Because actually, but she never had a bass player before. On her first 2 albums, there's no one plays bass.
Wow.
I think
I didn't
unless
know
maybe
that.
Nard Edwards maybe plays on one track on Like a Virgin. I probably should have researched that before I said that, but I'm pretty sure she hadn't had a bass player before. And this was so yeah, and it was with a band. She asked. I actually got to pick my own drummer, who blew me out, which got me sacked before I'd even got the gig. But then that all got sorted out somehow. Actually, thanks to God bless him, God rest him, Nick Kamen. She bumped
Oh,
into Nick
wow.
Kamen on the beach and went, "I got this fucking English bass player. He can't even get a fucking, Guy Pratt." And Nick goes, "Oh yeah, Guy's great. No, I love Guy." So thank eternal gratitude to Nick for that. And so yeah, I turned up and everything was cut live. It was, in live in the studio, which is
Oh,
not what I
wow.
thought recording with her would
Yeah.
be. And you just had this fucking insane band. Jonathan Moffat, Sugarfoot, the Jacksons drummer, Jay Winding playing keyboards, Pat Leonard playing keyboards as well, Bruce Gage playing guitar. I mean, this was so posh. And then all being engineered by Bill Bottrell. Uh, and it was not, there were things like, I was Oh Father, which is an amazing song. It's one of those songs when you read it, when you look at the chart on the page, it's like, what even is this? It's like a bar of two, bar of six, bar of, and then and then as soon as the vocal goes on, it goes schling into this kind of the most straightforward, simple, perfect song. But we literally the tape ran like 3 times for that. We ran it once with Madonna singing in the control room, at the end of which she gave everyone really good notes. like really like
Yeah.
proper notes in language you could understand. Um, and then went, okay, let's do it again. And we ran it again. And that was the take. That was the whole band. That was it. And her vocal.
Oh, wow.
Then they got a string section in. They hit record once more for that. And then Chester came in and did one slide guitar overdub. That was it. That was the whole song, which is when you listen to it, it is incredible.
It is
Um,
incredible. I was going to say you kind of mentioned there that Madonna gave you notes. Now, obviously, as a pop princess as she was known and things like that. But she was very much a perfectionist when it came to the music as well, wasn't she? In the studio, so was she very, very hands on when it came to what was recorded and the way things were played and things like that?
yeah, very handsome. I remember on that song, Duck, I remember it was like because she actually used the phrase. She said, "Guy, just duck eggs," which is like whole notes, you know. And she said, except for that one, I'd done a film in there. Said, except for that fill within, it's like how, and then it's like, Jay, don't play the bells till the second chorus, and it was literally that sort of stuff. And she'd been singing it as well.
Wow,
So yeah, no, it was
oh,
incredibly impressive. Um,
fantastic stuff.
yeah, really, yeah. But she could also be really funny, you know. It'd be like I remember there was one song where Moffat was going, I'm sorry, I can't remember when do I come in? She went, you come in when I do this, and she just lifted her top up. um, and that wasn't actually when you come in. But those are, in fact, there's one song on there called "Till Death Us Do Part." And you can't really hear it. It's a real shame. The one time I ever used, because I was getting given tons of stuff at this point, and of course it was the 80s and everything was about tech and everything. And I got Kramer had given me this bass guitar, which was a 5-string bass, and it was an ultimate schoolboy thing, where it was stereo, but every string was stereo. There was a pan pot for literally for every string, which you can think about is kind of preposterous. But it was great. But I said there's a really good bass line, which I said it's really good because I think it was actually Pat who wrote it. It's dum bam ba-do-da-do-dum, ba-do-do-da-do-dum, da-do-do-da-dum, dum ba-da-do-da-do-dum, ba-do-do-da-dum, dum, like that. And I panned all the strings in different directions.
Wow, that
So
sounds amazing.
yeah,
Very
stuff
clever.
like that. And then the actual song, like and there was I was Spanish Eyes. That's a great one where I remember we were just in there. We had our and again that was just through a few run throughs, and and we played it once, and then she said to Bruce, can you give us like a Spanish guitar intro type thing? He goes, oh, what you mean like this? He goes, yes, that's it. And there's now an intro to the song, and that's how that happened. It's all
Phenomenal stuff.
yeah, it was great. And then of course the song Like a Prayer, which I don't really remember. I just remember it was me and Madonna and Pat and Bill in the studio one afternoon, and I'm sure I thought I was just mucking about. That's like my version of the real me, the whole thing when Entwistle wasn't thought he
Yes.
wasn't being recorded. That's my real me.
I was going to ask you about that song because that is a very famous bass line and it's an incredible bass line as well. So, was that, as you're just saying, you were just mucking about, just coming off the top of your head? I mean, did you expect to go back and simplify it, or was it just a bit of fun? I mean, what was happening
Yeah,
around
I
that?
can't no because my bit because it's that because there's that because it's actually there's a synth going ding ding digga 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 just doing that bit, and so the idea was that I thought I said well I'll just get an octave pedal and I'll double that, but then I just started throwing all this stuff in between it. And you're just, I'm thinking, well, there's a gap. They'll obviously just take it out, and they didn't. They kept all of it. Like I said it, I've said it a million times, but I still, when I got invited back to the mix months later, and I went and sat next to Madonna in the control room, and they played it back really loud, I thought, God, that sounds like me. But it can't be because it's so above my pay grade. Pino gets to do that. I don't get to do that. Um, and and I said to her, in all honesty, I went, "Wow, Madonna, I think that's the best record you've ever made, and that bass is amazing. Who is it?" She went, "You dummy!"
So you obviously patched up your relations there. Did you work with her later on different releases or
Yes, I
anything like
did.
that?
Yeah, I did one other record. I did. I played on Breathless, the soundtrack to. I played on Hanky Panky.
Ah, yes, yeah, yeah.
That's me. There's a synth bass, so I'm doubling it. And there's one other song on that I'm on. I can't remember which one. I like the story of Hanky Panky though. I love. There's a great thread to that, which is that uh, Pete Townsend loved Let's Go Crazy by Prince, right? And that came out when he was making the White City album. And when he wrote Face the Face, that is basically that comes from Let's Go Crazy. And it does if you think about it. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
that's similar sort of thing. We all went to see The Who do this star-studded version of Tommy at the Universal Amphitheatre while we were recording the album. I mean, in fact, I went with David Gilmour because he was in town, and Pat was there with Madonna, and I mean, everyone was there. It was amazing. And at the end of the show, they did Face the Face, right? And Pat was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! I love this song," and so that's where Hanky Panky comes from.
Ah.
So you got this fantastic thing of it goes Prince to Pete Townsend to Madonna. So it's kind of like almost done a circle.